Good morning. Let's get our comments working and then we'll have some. Then we'll have it all. No reason to settle for less. All right, why is this not working? There we go. Now it's working. Everything's working. Except the government employees. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams. You've never had a better time. But if you'd like to take this experience up to levels that nobody can even understand with their tiny, shiny human brains, all you need for that is a cup or mug or glass, tank or chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. Join me now for the unparalleled pleasure. The dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. I hope. It's called the simultaneous sip. Happens now. Go. Tremendous. So good. Well, I'd like to apologize in advance in case I fall asleep sometime during this show. The three things that you need to do to feel good. You need to get your sleep, you need to eat right, and you need to exercise. Those are three things I haven't been able to do for about a month. So I'm on my last thread here. So I've got a little brain fog going on. So whatever you think is the best this show could be, dial it back about 40%. And you'll be good. Well, as you know, everybody's talking about DOGE and should we be cutting with an axe or cutting with a scalpel. So I've decided that Dilbert's company is going to go through the same thing. So Dilbert's CEO is going to, wait, what's that? Wow. So Dilbert's company, the CEO is going to ask the pointy-eared boss to make some deep cuts, but with a scalpel, not an axe. How do you think that's going to go? Well, let me give you an idea. CEO to pointy-eared boss. I need to make some deep cuts. Got to cut 20%. And since you're the manager who knows what everybody's doing, you can do it with a scalpel. Otherwise, I'd have to do it with an axe because I don't know what anybody does. So the pointy-eared manager goes away and he says, all right, give me a month to study it, and I'll come back with some recommendations. A month later, the pointy-eared boss comes back and says, I studied everything, talked to every person that works for me, and we decided that we need more money, not less. Okay, the job was to cut 20%. Yeah, I know, but it turns out that when I took the scalpel, as opposed to the axe, everything looked like it was necessary. So nothing to cut, and we really need to expand a few things. So I'll need about 20% more. You really need to find a way to cut. All right, I've got an idea. How about this? How about you fire my rival in another department and then fold that department under me? And then you save some money with that other guy. And then the CEO says, well, that other guy said the same thing about you. How about we fire you and fold your department under him? And then the CEO says, all right, give me a list of all your projects. We'll find something to cut. And then he looks at the projects and realizes he doesn't know what any of them really are because they're just names of things. And so the CEO says, well, what about this one? And then the pointy-eared boss says, oh, no, you can't cut that one. That one's essential. All right, what about this one? Oh, my goodness. If you cut that, we'll all die by this afternoon. All right, but what about this one? No, that one's going to have to increase the budget. We're going to need twice as much budget for that one. Do you think it works to do a scalpel? Scalpel might work up to 5 or 10%. But if you're trying to make a deep cut, I don't think it's going to work. Here's some Zuby wisdom. You all know Zuby. How do you even describe Zuby? He's so many things at the same time. Anyway, Zuby says the biggest reason why Western society is in trouble is that the culture dictates that telling inconvenient truths is hateful and feelings are more important than the truth. As a result, people are in a constant state of lying and denying of reality, and nothing gets fixed. Right. We are in a continuous state of lying to each other about everything all the time. So here's some inconvenient truth. I'm just going to say the thing that I haven't seen anybody say. I tend to watch a lot of YouTube about ancient civilizations, and I love it when we dig up some new ancient civilization that used to be quite advanced for its time, but now it's completely gone. And then I say to myself, why didn't any of those ancient civilizations, including, the really powerful ones like Rome, why didn't any of them survive? And then I think, well, the United States is different because the United States has figured out, how to solve all kinds of problems. And, we're not going to run into any big problem. So we'll probably survive for a long time. But the US has only been around a few hundred years. That's really not very long. And there's some thinking that the reason that prior great civilizations failed is that they spent themselves into debt. And that there's something that happens every time, that when a civilization gets to some really good level, they just overspend, and then they're broke. Now, of course, in the old days, they were also overrun by marauders and probably had some diseases that they couldn't handle and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's quite sobering to see that 100% of great civilizations failed, all of them. And now we're looking at the United States with a debt that couldn't possibly be paid back unless we did something really drastic, which is what DOGE is trying to do. So the thing you got to know is that here are your two possibilities. Let's say you do the careful, reasoned cuts with a scalpel versus doing something that people would call chaotic, and maybe he doesn't have much empathy and it's just an axe and all that. Let's say those are the two conditions. Which one do you think has a better chance of working? Now, I would say, given that what we're looking at is an existential threat, meaning that our debt literally will kill us in just a few years. The entire United States is gone in a few years if we don't get it under control. Now, Musk knows that. That's why he's all in. But I don't know if the country knows it, because we don't say that honestly. To Zuby's point, we pretend like, well, if we just do business as normal and make a few strategic cuts and treat everybody nice, we should be in good shape. But I don't think anything like that is possible. I think if we make some nice strategic little cuts and everybody's happy with them, how well thought out they are, we're not even going to be close to saving the country, like actually survival. So when I look at the scalpel idea, I see zero chance of it working. Zero. When I look at the meat axe version, I say that could terribly go wrong. It's easy to imagine how it could go wrong, but it's the only thing that might go right. So if the scalpel is a definite failure, because here's what Musk's opponents seem to pretend. They pretend that we don't have a deep existential threat, and it isn't really close. That if you looked into it and said, we could cut 5% out of this department and 5% of that, and we really thought about it, and we'll treat everybody nice. I don't think that could work. I think that would be a way to cut 5% out of the budget. It would make no difference to our survival. If you want to survive, you might have to, remove the leg and, take care of it. So I guess that's where the critics and I diverge. If you think there's any way to survive scalpel cuts, I don't think there is. I see nothing that would suggest we could survive just going slowly and carefully. I don't think that's survivable. The meat axe could be a problem, or it might work. But there's only one path that might work. So I'm all in on the path that might work. Anyway, let's talk about some good news for Trump. The American Bar Association just suspended their DEI requirements, according to the Gateway Pundit. Cassandra McDonald's reporting. So it suspended law school diversity, equity, and inclusion requirements. Now, is that the Trump effect? Because I don't believe Trump ordered that, or there's no executive order on that, right? And he wouldn't have any say in it anyway. So it feels like the American Bar Association is sort of the canary in the coal mine, meaning if they go early, if they throw DEI out early, it's probably because a whole bunch of lawyers think that there's going to be a legal risk if you keep doing it. And there should be. There should be a legal risk to discrimination. So if the American Bar Association is getting rid of DEI, that's probably a really good sign for what's ahead. Well, you all know the word of the day. The word of the day is Bongino. I've never seen people so happy. You know, I guess Kash Patel made people pretty happy. And of course, I was very happy about RFK Jr. and Tulsi made a lot of people happy when she got appointed. But Dan Bongino has been tapped to be the new deputy director of the FBI. And I don't believe that requires any congressional approval. But I did not know how impressive Bongino's background is. I knew some of it, and I've told you one of the things I like about him is he's a talent stack guy, meaning that he just keeps acquiring new talents and adding them to the ones he has, and then he's got this super powerful package of talents. But I didn't know he has 2 advanced degrees. I think he has, now this might be wrong because I think it came from an AI, but I think he has a master's degree and then he's got an MBA. He's worked in the police department. He did a Secret Service agent job, and now he's got all of the public communication skills too. So he knows media, he knows everything about law enforcement, and he's highly educated. So, and you know, I think character is probably even a bigger thing. He is not exactly the kind of guy who's going to back off, if you know what I mean. Bongino strikes me as the kind who would, you know, chew through a brick wall if there was a reason to do it. You just need a reason. He does not look like the kind of guy who's going to shrink from a task because it's difficult. So I think all of us are inspired by that because he's such a fighter and he has just a ridiculous amount of skills at this point, just ridiculous. I have so much respect for that. Anyway, so congratulations to Dan Bongino. And I know all of you are thinking, oh, the Russia collusion hoax, Adam Schiff. There's going to be some good arrests coming. Maybe. We'll see. I won't make any predictions about any specific things that will be investigated. But it's all good news. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi's Department of Justice, apparently, according to the Western Journal, they launched a fraud investigation on United Health. Now, you remember United Health? Their CEO was the one who was gunned down on the street. But United Health is maybe the biggest in terms of their, is it mostly health insurance, I guess? So they've, apparently they're being investigated for Medicare billing practices, which would suggest that somebody thinks, see, this is the brain fog. I can't look at a comment and then remember what I was talking about. So it suggests that somebody thinks United Health may have been cheating on some big stuff, and that could be big. Speaking of cheating on the big stuff, you know, you've been hearing for years that Haiti was a situation where a whole bunch of money, billions of dollars, were given to Haiti for recovery from their 2010 hurricane. And the entire time we kept thinking, people kept saying, it's a grift. It's the Clinton Foundation has found a way to steal your money. And the whole time I thought, well, yeah, there might be some of that. When you're sloshing around that much money, yeah, there's going to be some of that gets to the wrong places. But I thought mostly it probably got to where it was supposed to. Turns out that might be wrong. And it's a little too early to know how much of this is true. It's a little fog of war situation. But according to Zero Hedge, some Haitian reporters had been warning about disappearing money for years. And USAID was the big funding organization. And some of it was dispersed through the Clinton Foundation. All right, so as USAID, it was billions of dollars for Haiti, and some of it was funneled through the Clinton Foundation. Now, that doesn't mean there's any crime. It's just that it's everything you would expect if there were a crime. It looks exactly like the setup for a crime. But the allegation here is that only 2% of the $4.4 billion that was allotted for Haitian relief actually got used in Haiti. So where did the rest of the money go? Well, allegedly, the New York Post says that 56% of that money for Haiti went to firms located in or near the U.S. Capitol, and apparently the money stayed there. So here's how it goes. There's a disaster in Haiti. The U.S. government allocates $4.4 billion, goes into that USAID bucket, and then from there, it goes to a whole bunch of NGOs and consultants and contractors, and then only 2% of it got spent on Haiti. I feel like I'd have to hear the other side of that story, because that's a little hard to believe. It's a little too on the nose, 2%. Come on. But on the other hand, maybe. I mean, one thing we can all tell is that Haiti doesn't seem to be a bit better, if anything. So what if that's true? What if it's true? There's no investigation opened up as far as I know. So I think I'm not going to treat it as a fact until I hear there's an investigation opened. And even then, I shouldn't treat it as a fact. But if there's no investigation, it just feels like talk at this point. I do think it's possible that these numbers are right on and that there's a ton of money just missing. But I wouldn't say for sure yet. Well, here's some more good news for Trump. According to pollster Frank Luntz, that 33 days into Trump's term, he has a higher approval rating than at any point during his first term. Are you having the same weird situation that I am? I'll turn on the news and it'll be some Democrat-oriented news. And it'll say, "Oh, Trump's approval has plunged. It's plunged." And sure enough, it looks like it went from unusually high to lower fairly quickly. Now, the first thing you need to know is that if you're comparing what Trump was to himself, and it used to be at an all-time high, but now it's lower, there's always a honeymoon when you first get in, and then there's always a pullback. So 1 month after you get into office, I would expect every president's approval to be lower, because you have all these, lofty ambitions. When you get that new person, it's like, oh, they're going to do so much. Then a month later, the news has completely destroyed them, by picking at them here and there. And then you're like, But I do think Frank Luntz has the right metric, which is if it's still the best that Trump has ever done, even though he's, how can it be the best he's ever done if he used to be higher? Well, I guess there's some discrepancy in the polling. Do you believe that the polling is rigged? I do. I think that at least some of the polls, and I'm not going to name names, but some of the big name polls, I think they're rigged when it comes to politics. So I don't know what to believe there. But according to Rasmussen, 62% of the voting public, backs Trump's deportation policy. 62%. So that's helping him. It is really impressive. I mean, everybody says it too much, but it's very impressive that Trump and Homan did, in fact, get control of the border so quickly. It certainly validated everything they said about Biden. Because remember all those years when Biden and Harris would say, "Oh, there's nothing we could do. Nothing we could do. I don't know. What could we do?" And then they would lie about how illegal crossings went down. And the way they would lie is that they made illegal crossings illegal. They just hired more people so they could claim asylum. And if you're claiming asylum, you're legal until proven otherwise. So all they did was legalize illegality, and then they claimed it as a victory. I think the extent of the Biden administration evil, I don't know if we'll ever see the bottom of it. In my view, they were totally corrupt and totally evil. But because he was such a smiley good guy, he just sort of got away with it, like Hunter. Pollster Mark Penn, who worked for the Clintons, and anyway, just so you know, he's worked for Democrats. He said on the Laura Ingraham show, he said, "I've got some new polling coming out on Monday, that would be today, that I've just looked at. Frankly, the Democratic Party is falling off a cliff. The ratings were in the high 40s, and they're going to be like 35%. And the basic question on who's doing a better job as president, Biden or Trump, Trump is winning that with 57%. So Trump's looking really strong right now. And if you're reading the critics, you would come to the opposite conclusion. So you probably saw that. What's his name? Carville. James Carville is predicting that the administration will collapse in 30 days. I don't see any indication of that whatsoever. So that's sort of a wishful thinking thing. If he's right, it'll look like he's psychic. And if he's not, we won't remember he said it. So it's a smart prediction. In more sign of the time news, you already know that MSNBC is doing a shakeup, and they got rid of Joy Reid. But they just had a legal analyst on who said that Trump's not really losing the legal battles, but if you were to read the news, you would think Trump is losing all over the place. It's like, oh, the court put a stay on this, and the court said this is not specific enough, and the court said this. And I actually thought that. I actually thought, wow, seems like Trump is really getting beaten back on a lot of these legal cases. But MSNBC's own legal analyst said, quote, "These are not major setbacks," and that Trump's going to fight at every turn, and that means appealing everything because it doesn't cost him anything to appeal. I don't know how that's true, but that's what he said. So in many cases, the thing that the court halted, they didn't halt it permanently. They just said, "Oh, put a pause on that, a stay, and give us some time to look at it, and then we'll figure out if it's legal or not." So in many of those cases, time will go by. They'll look at it and go, "Oh, okay, carry on." We took some time to look at it, but it looks fine. And plus, he's going to win some on appeal. So the lawfare against Trump, once again, not working. Not working. More good news for Trump and the country. Apple announced it's going to bring $500 billion in investments to expand manufacturing in the U.S. and create thousands of jobs. Now, that's a pretty big deal. It's a very big deal. It's over 4 years, but still $500 billion. And I hope, because now there have been several announcements from big entities about bringing money to the United States, the only way that the U.S. is going to survive is massively bringing back manufacturing. And it's beginning. And here's what's interesting. If Apple's doing it, it's going to be a strong argument for anybody to do it. And if you're in a company that is not planning to do it, well, Apple is definitely planning to do it. You're going to have to explain why you can't do it. So it's not just big in terms of dollars, it's big in terms of how we think about it. Because if Apple can commit to this, and you would expect Apple to really be caring about, margins and stuff like that. But if Apple thinks they can make this work, and I think some of it is acknowledgement that manufacturing in China, for example, is not as safe as it used to be, if it ever was. So that's good news. You probably all know that Elon Musk and DOGE and Trump have ordered government workers who work remotely to get back to work. So starting this week, according to Elon Musk, starting this week, people who fail to return to the office to work will be placed on administrative leave. Administrative leave. But what about that email that all the government workers got that said you should tell us, this is from DOGE, that you need to tell us what you accomplished. Give us 5 bullet points of things you accomplished this week. Now, of course, people are going crazy. It's like, what? What about if you can't have access to email? What if you're on vacation, which is a thing in the government, I guess. And people are complaining that that's no way to run anything. And are these people going to be fired if they don't respond? Well, the one thing we seem to know is that nobody's going to get fired for not responding. But I do wonder what the utility is. Now, as I said before, part of the utility, I think, nobody said this, is my own opinion, is to just reframe how serious working for the government should be. That if you're not accomplishing things, you're gone. So people will remember the email long after, its tiny little mark on the world goes away, because they'll realize that if you don't report some real accomplishments every week, your job's in danger. Now, I don't see any possibility that, somebody like Elon or anybody else could look through all the emails to look at all their accomplishments. We wouldn't know if any of them were true because anybody could just lie. How would you know? It's not even illegal to lie to the government about what you accomplished. You're not going to jail for it. So people will make up some stuff, and other people have real accomplishments. Other people, I guess, several parts of the government are looking to ignore it. I think Kash Patel told the FBI, no, don't do that. We have our own process for performance reviews. I think the State Department and the Pentagon pushed back. So I don't know how many of these emails they're going to get, but I think just asking for them gives you a win, because it just tells you, all right, this is a new day. We're really going to look at your performance now. Right. Now, if the DOGE people plan to look at any of them, and they said copy your manager, so the manager would be the one getting the 5 things you accomplished, as well as the DOGE. At most, the most I can see the DOGE could do with that would be run an AI against it to look for ones that are clearly fake, and maybe also make some recommendations about who's not doing enough. But, most jobs are not accomplishment-oriented. They're just process. So if your job is to just, process all requests that come into your office, that should be enough. I processed all the requests that came into my office. That should keep your job. So it shouldn't be hard, but we'll keep an eye on that. Wall Street Journal was trying to calculate how big the impact might be on the economy for all these massive government firings. So if you add these 75,000 resignations, maybe 200,000 probationary employees already fired, and maybe 200,000 in attrition, and so they're thinking that maybe in total 475,000 jobs, which is a lot. But it's worse. because there will also be vendors who are selling things that can't sell it, and all that. But to put it in perspective, 475,000 jobs over a few years, we could absorb that. What about all the secondary effects about all of the the vendors and stuff, the contractors? Well, that's pretty big, and so even the 475,000 jobs would only be 0.3% of the U.S.'s non-farm jobs. So they're not big percentages, but in certain places like Washington, D.C., it's going to be a big impact. And there will be bankruptcies, and there will be dislocations, and there will be unemployment, and it's going to be big. Now, a lot of it is spread in over different communities. It's not all in Washington, D.C., just a lot of it is. So, yeah, it's going to be ugly. But I'm going to go back to my first comment. If that's the only way you can save the country is by doing something that's ugly and has an axe, you have to do that. You have to do that. So I have complete empathy for the people losing their jobs, and those are real problems. I'm not gonna slight that at all. But the alternative, to me, it looks like we all lose everything. So that's not too different than private companies doing layoffs. A number of private companies are doing layoffs right now, because the people who get laid off and their families definitely suffer, no doubt about it. But if we didn't have layoffs, then the entire economy would just be so unproductive that nothing would work. We'd all be dead. So yeah, in the real world, going back to Zuby's comment where you can't say what's true, here's what I think is true about DOGE. It will be really painful. And that pain will extend beyond the people who get fired, and it will extend beyond the people who are contractors and vendors. It will hurt. There's just not another choice. Unless you believe you can scalpel your way, and which I don't. Yeah. So I'm a little tired of people saying the easy and obvious thing and then pretending that Elon Musk doesn't know. So I'm going to add to my list of dumb things that people say about DOGE. Scott, government is different than private industry. To which I say, who do you think didn't know that? Do you think that Elon Musk is going to wake up and read your post and say, whoa, hold on, hold everything. You're telling me that the government is different from private industry? What? And people talk like that's actually a thing. Like that Elon Musk is the only person in the world, because we all know it, that government is different than industry in lots of different ways. But somehow he doesn't know it? Of course he knows it. Of course he does. Now, he might not know every nuance, but that's what the MeatX is going to do, and we'll correct as we need to. So it will hurt, but I don't think there's another way. As you know, we've reported this already, that the top general in the military, C.Q. Brown, so he was the Joint Chiefs of he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he was accused of being, too woke, too DEI. And I didn't know what that meant until I saw a compilation of his clips, and I had a few different observations. Number one, C.Q. Brown has the best voice for leadership that you'll ever hear in your life. If you haven't heard him talk, I recommend it. He's really got that command voice. Like it has that resonance, and it's just, he presents it perfectly. He's obviously very smart. He's an impressive guy. However, when you look at the clips of his emphasis on DEI, it really is just flat out racist. He found 100 different ways to say, I'm going to get rid of the white people in command. Now, not by firing them necessarily, or I don't know, whatever you do in the military. Scott, the military is different than a private company. I know. Just go with it, okay? Every way that he tried to explain it just sounded like I'm going to make sure there are fewer white people. That's the main goal, fewer white people. And he had to go. That has to be a firing offense, unfortunately, because he did look like he was quite capable in general. So he wasn't. I don't think he was necessarily a DEI hire, because if you put him next to Mark Milley and you let both of them answer questions for 5 minutes, you would think Mark Milley was the dumb one. So I'll just put that out there for contrast. All right. There's some news about Trump is doing something to charge Chinese shipping tremendous amount of money for using our ports, like $1 million every time they come into port and $1 million for something else. So we'll see if that becomes a real thing. But like the tariffs, that should increase your costs in the short run. Now, going back to Zuby, you know, we can't say the truth. I'm going to say the truth. There's probably no way to get the lower costs and get inflation really down to where we want it without things getting worse in the short run. Probably not, because this is a perfect example. So essentially the tariffs and whatever this is that they're doing with the Chinese shipping are ways to make it more expensive for buying things overseas and having them shipped here, to encourage more companies to just make it here. In the short run, all it is going to be is more expensive. In the long run, the collective result of all these actions should bring more manufacturing to the US, give us better jobs, bring prices down. It's just that if you're Trump, you can't really say, hold on, people, it's going to be worse for at least a year or two, because that might be the truth. Nobody wants to hear that. We all want to hear that the price of eggs will be free tomorrow. What? I'm still paying for gas? I thought you'd have that fixed by now. It's been 33 days. Meanwhile, Trump demanded that the Taliban return $7 billion worth of military equipment. Unusual Wales is reporting that. I'm thinking to myself, really? Wouldn't that be hilarious if the Taliban said, oh, these are your Jeeps and helicopters? Oh, yeah. We'll wipe them down and we'll have them ready. Just come on over and pick it up. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't think there's really any chance that Taliban is going to give back any stuff. So why did he say it? Why did Trump even bring it up if there's just no way it's going to happen? Well, one reason might be I'm wrong, that maybe it could happen, because Trump keeps doing these things that don't look possible, like having some control over Greenland or something. Then next thing you know, Greenland saying, there is a way you could do that and might be good for everybody. So it could be that he's opening up negotiations. Might be opening up negotiations. For what? I don't know, but we'll see. Microsoft's CEO Satya Nadella was doing a presentation just yesterday, maybe, or this week, on using AI to increase farm yields. And apparently it's already working on small farms. And the idea is you'd put various sensors in your field. So you'd be measuring the quality of the dirt and the moisture and everything else. And then the AI would tell you what to do. So it would say, well, you better put a little more of this or a little less of that on there. And the AI, being smarter than people, according to Satya Nadella, it's already working, and the small farms are getting big increases in yields. I don't know about that. I'm a little bit skeptical that there's much of a difference, but it'd be kind of cool if there were. But in related news, I didn't know about this, but this fascinates me. You know that billionaire Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle, did you know that he bought the Hawaiian island of Lahaina? So he owns, I think, 98% of the island or something. And the island used to grow lots of pineapples. That was the main thing the island did. But I guess they polluted the soil, and you can't grow much of anything there outdoors. So he put $500 million into building indoor farms that could serve the island. But the bigger ambition was to make food, fresh and nearby to where you're going to eat it, and just really revolutionize the whole food thing. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, I just love the indoor garden space. I just love that because I feel like it's just going to happen. That at the moment, there's no indoor farm that could give you the protein that you need, and would be easy to manage and all that stuff. It wouldn't be cost effective, but it feels like it could be. Like every instinct in my body says, well, probably we're one or two innovations away from making indoor gardening really work. But after years of work, um, Ellison was working with a company called Sensei AG, and apparently just nothing works. Well, I'm exaggerating, not nothing. But they had all kinds of problems with their structures. They had problems with their Wi-Fi, and instead of growing like all the food you would need for the island, I think it's basically lettuce and small tomatoes or something, which they do sell, but it's just trivial. So basically, it didn't work. The experiment, $500 million, and looks like it didn't get even close to working. Now that's the Wall Street Journal's reporting on that. So that was a little disappointing. And then the Boring Company's got a deal, according to New Atlas. They're going to build tunnels under Dubai. So, the tunnels that aren't that much bigger than a car. And then Dubai, you'll be able to go underground and scoot around in your little Tesla in these tunnels. Now, if you had told me that that would be a thing in the future, that the Boring Company would have big deals like in Las Vegas or Dubai, and they'd be building underground tunnels for individual cars, I would have said to you, that doesn't sound like a business. So it's pretty impressive. I don't know if the Boring Company makes money yet, and I don't know if it's cash positive, but the fact that it's doing as much as it is kind of shocking. I've been saying for years that holes are the best technology. If we could figure out how to put a hole in something, it'd be great. But one of the things I saw online is somebody was challenging me, saying, speaking of our billionaires, Larry Ellison and Musk, somebody was challenging me about DOGE. Well, actually, it was just a post, so it wasn't challenging me personally, and said, how would you like it if DOGE were being run by George Soros? So that was put forward as a good argument. Well, if it were George Soros, who leans left, how would you like it over on the right? Now, remember I always tell you that analogies are not a form of thinking? They really aren't. Because in this analogy, they're comparing a devil to an angel. Yeah, at least in the opinion of conservatives. Soros would be like the devil. So if you put the devil in charge of cutting the budget, what do you think is going to happen? Versus Elon, who seems to orient all of his investments toward, making the world safer, allowing us to be interplanetary so we'll survive the next asteroid. I mean, all of it is just purely, it makes money, but it's for the benefit of humankind. So you've got one person who seems to hate humankind, Soros, and one person who loves it so much that there's no amount of work he won't do to make it better. How in the world do you think that's a good analogy? Let's compare the darkest figure in the world who might just want to destroy the country to the happiest, most successful guy who only wants to make things better. I mean, that's crazy talk. So, yesterday, if you were watching the show yesterday, and I had to quit rather quickly at the end because there was some loud noise in the front of my house. It was a pretty serious car accident. So it wasn't on my property, but it was right by my driveway. So a Uber driver may have had a medical problem. It's not clear, but drove at a pretty high speed into a concrete barrier. And when I went outside after the show, there was just all kinds of emergency vehicles and fire trucks and police. And at first I was like, I hope this isn't about me. I hope nothing about this is about me, but it wasn't. And then the Uber driver was like, when I went down to the end of the driveway to see what was going on, the Uber driver was wildly gesticulating at me. I still don't know what that's about, but he kept pointing at me and like blah 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 blah. So I don't know. Maybe he was blaming me. So I don't know the answer to that mystery, but that's what the noise was all about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of my show. I'm not feeling well this month. I'm going to get that taken care of, I hope, in the next few days. I've got a doctor's appointment. I think I have pneumonia. So I'm operating on, almost nothing. So we'll get that taken care of. And hopefully in a week or so, I will be back to a human being. Well, getting some sleep is impossible because I have a sciatica and I have backaches, sciatica, and I think pneumonia, which means that every position I sleep in is deeply painful. So there is no sleep solution. The only thing I can do is sleep for 45 minutes, wake up in pain, walk around until I'm too tired to walk around, fall asleep for 45 minutes, and then wake up in extreme pain again. So that's pretty much all I've been doing for weeks. So I'm in really bad shape right now. I'm just barely hanging on, to be honest. But should be able to take care of it this week. We'll see. All right. So that's enough of that. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining. I'm going to talk to the locals people privately. The rest of you, come back tomorrow, same time, same place. All right, locals, coming at you in 30 seconds.